I remember when I first got into reading music and also just like looking at things online, one of the things that always blew me away was the chord symbol names and how to actually decode them. I'm happy to report that after, the last almost 20 years of playing guitar, I figured out a thing or two about chord symbols. And what I wanted to do in today's video is just give you a rundown, translating pretty much every chord symbol you could ever come across and tell you what it means, what notes it contains, and how to think about them. So we're going to start out really simply and really easily with just the world of triads. So these are basic chords. Let's say, for example, you just see a notation that says C. That means that it's a C major triad. So you're going to play the root, the major third, and the fifth. You can play any arrangement of them on the guitar as long as you play those notes. Now, if you see CM, C min, or C with a little dash beside it, that means that it's a minor chord. That's the common way to notate a C minor triad. So that would contain the root, the minor third, and the fifth. If you were to see a circle beside it, a little tiny circle, or dim, that means that it's a C diminished triad, and that would contain the notes C, E flat, and G flat, or the root, the minor third, and the diminished fifth. So those are the basic triad voicings that you need to know. Now, two other ones that are technically triads that could come up would be, say you saw C sus. Now, C sus is going to mean C where there's no third and instead you're playing the fourth. It's this beautiful sound. It's wonderful. You could also see that notated as a C sus4. The sus is short for suspended, and a suspended chord is a chord that doesn't have a third in it. And this is the kind of important place to bring up, that there is also such a thing as a sus2, which is where rather than taking the third of your chord and raising it to the fourth, you take your third of the chord and you drop it to the major second, and that gives you this kind of sound. Another beautiful sound. Now, if you see sus, it just says C sus, that means that it's a sus4 chord. For it to be a sus2 chord, it would specifically be notated sus2. It is a beautiful voicing that I find is often underutilized and not talked about or played. But if you see sus, it means sus4. That is the standard. But if you see sus2, then you would, rather than raising the third to the fourth, you would drop it to the second. And whenever you see sus, it's short for suspended, and that means that it's a chord without the third in it. Now, let's talk about getting a little bit fancy. We'll add some sevenths to our chords. So say we saw C major 7. That major, anytime you see maj in a chord, it means that you are going to get a major seventh somewhere in that. So in the C major 7, it's the root, the third, the fifth, and then the major seventh in it. Beautiful chord. If we were to look at a C minor 7, the common ways to notate this would either be C lowercase m 7, C min 7, or C minus symbol 7. Those would contain the root, the minor third, the fifth, and the flat seventh. Those are the contents of a minor 7 chord. And a really quick note, going back to major there, I just remembered. Another common way to notate major 7 is triangle 7. I don't know who decided that was going to be major. It makes no sense to me. The minus symbol definitely makes sense. But seeing that triangle means that you're going to get a major 7. Now anyways, let's keep going through seventh chords. The next one I want to talk about is just C7. So if you ever see a chord symbol followed by just a number, that means that it's a dominant chord. So C7 contains the root, the third, the fifth, and the flat seventh, making it a dominant 7 chord. If you saw C9, that means it's a dominant chord with the 9th on it. More on that later. Or C13, it's a C7 chord with the 6th added to it. And again, more on that in a minute. But if you ever just see a letter followed by the number, it's going to be a dominant chord. Now, two more 7th chords to talk about really here, and those would be the minor 7 flat 5 chord or half diminished. The common ways that you'll see this notated are either C minor 7 flat 5 or C with a little circle and a slash through the middle. That's the symbol for half diminished. And these chords contain the root, the minor third, the flat 5th, and the flat 7th. Now, the next kind of 7th chord to talk about is going to be a C diminished 7. And this is going to be noted as either C dim 7 or C circle 7. And the little circle again means diminished because these chords are symmetrical. It's hard to reach up that high on an acoustic guitar without a cutaway. But those symmetrical chords, again, if you see those, it means that it has a root, a minor third, a flat fifth, and a diminished seventh. Now, a diminished seventh is actually a double flat seventh, so a lot of musicians, myself included, actually just think of it as a major sixth, because you would take a minor seventh and then flat it again, and that gives you the note that's the sixth in relation to your root. But if that doesn't make any sense to you, just know that you flat the seventh twice, essentially. Now, those are all of our sevenths. Now let's talk about some kind of common extensions that might get thrown into this. So if you see anything that says 9 on it, that means that you're adding the note that is the second note of the scale. So if we were in the key of C, I'd be adding the note D, but I'm adding it an octave above my root. So for example, the most simple ninth chords we can get into would be C add 9. And now what C add 9 means is that you're adding the ninth, but there's no major seventh in between it. So it would be the notes of a C major triad, C, E, G, and then you're adding the ninth. You can also have a C minor add 9 chord, which is very much the same process. It's just a little bit, or it's exactly the same process, it's just minor rather than that. Now, if you were to see C major 9, that means that you would have a major seventh in the mix, and if you were to see just C minor 9, that implies that you have a flat seventh in it. Or yeah, you add, it's a minor 7 chord with the ninth added. If you see C9, it's a dominant chord with the ninth added, and then if you saw minor 7 flat 5/9, that chord's not very common, but again, it would mean the same thing. Now, if we go to the next most common chord extension, that would be some form of 11. A lot of the times you'll see the 11 as a sharp 11, and what that means is the 11th is the fourth note of the scale, but an octave up. So for example, C major 7 sharp 11 is not an uncommon sound. That's a very Lydian kind of sound. It's a beautiful sound, but the 11 is just the fourth up an octave. And then the same extension that exists, or the next extension, would be the 13th, which is the sixth note of the scale up an octave. So if we were in the key of in the key of C, our 13 would be the note A. And that is what 13 is. So 9 is the second, but up an octave. 11 is the fourth, but up an octave. And then 13 is the sixth, but up an octave. Now, one last common notation to kind of break out. If you ever see a plus or an addition symbol, that is the symbol for augmented. And what an augmented chord is it's a chord with a sharp 5. So if I took C and I raised the fifth by a half step, I would get C augmented. Now you can see C augmented, sometimes it'll be a, say it's a major 7 augmented. Kind of stressful sound, but also a kind of beautiful sound. You can also see C7 augmented a lot of the time. Although I played G augmented, I don't know why I did that. Let me do that again. Augmented is notated as a plus. So that's pretty much every chord symbol I can kind of think of right now that would be common to come across. Again, for every rule in music theory, there will be an exception to it. But I just wanted to make this video kind of giving you the rundown where, in about 10 minutes you can learn most of what you need to know to decode chord symbols that you'll find on sheet music or even just tabs on Ultimate Guitar. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe. It really helps me out more than you could know. If you want to take a guitar lesson with me, there's a link to get in touch with me down in the description. I'd love to work with you on whatever's troubling you on the guitar. If you're looking to support me in the free educational content that I put out here, you can subscribe to my Patreon, which is linked down in my description. All of my patrons get early access to videos as well as cool behind-the-scenes sneak peeks. It's stuff that I'm doing and working on. And they also get diagrams from all of these videos to aid them in their practice. So I'd love to see you over there. If you're looking for a different way to support me and what I'm up to, you can check out my ebook or my video courses, which are linked down below as well. It's a great way to get some more in-depth educational content from me than I can give you in a free 10 to 15 minute YouTube video. Last but not least, I have new videos coming out every single week, so I hope I'll see you in the next one. And until I do, I'll wish you a wonderful day, and I hope you have some fun playing the guitar. Thanks.